Happy New Year, everyone. My name is Adriana, and welcome to my channel. Today I'll be making coaster sets using 3 different techniques on 2 surfaces. These wood coasters I purchased at Hobby Lobby. They came in a set of 4 for $5.99. I bought them when they were 50% off. They even have little discs at the bottom to prevent scratching furniture. I'm removing the twine and setting it aside to use later. Here I'm just checking to see if there's any rough spots on the coasters, which I did find. So I'm just going to take the hand sander and lightly go over it to make sure it's nice and smooth. After I was done sanding them, I took a paper towel and just wiped them off. Here I'm making sure the grain of the wood is facing all in one direction. The first technique is going to be stamping. I'm using the Farm Animal stamps by IOD. They're one of my favorites. If you never used IOD stamps before, you only have to do this step once, but you need to lightly sand the stamp. Here I just want to show you the IOD stamps. I'm removing them from the plastic. As you can see, the stamp that I'm using, there's actually a picture of it on the plastic. So when you're done stamping and after you wash them, you clean them, they stick right back on, which makes it easy for storing away. Here I'm positioning each stamp on the coaster to make sure I like the spacing because the coaster is only 4x4, so you want to make sure you like the way it's going to look. Here I'm using the Stays On ink in jet black. I also like to use the IOD ink. Now you ink up the back of the stamp and place it firmly on the surface. I like to use a brayer, but if you don't have one, no problem. Just make sure you press down firmly onto the surface so you get a nice clean stamp. And you just continue on with all the stamps until you finish. The ink dries quickly, but I like to go over it with the heating gun before I start to Mod Podge. I do 1 coat of Mod Podge and again let it dry. Moving on to the next coaster set, I purchased these tiles at Home Depot for 13 cents a tile. I'm going to decoupage them. I'm using napkins I also purchased at Home Goods. Just remember, when you decoupage with napkins, you have to remove the ply of tissue down to the 1 ply. I use the Mod Podge on the tile, but before I actually use the Mod Podge, I use alcohol just to wipe the tile down clean, let it dry. Put the Mod Podge on, take the tissue, use your finger. You could also use saran wrap to take out any wrinkles, but I like to use my brayer. I'm going to repeat the same steps on the other 3 tiles. I like to set it aside to let it dry before I move on. Now I'm going to apply a second coat of Mod Podge on the wooden coasters and let it dry. Moving back to the tile, I'm placing Mod Podge on top of the napkin. Some people like to do this step right after they place the napkin down onto the Mod Podge. I like to let it dry a little so the napkin won't tear. After I seal the rest of the tiles, I let them dry. And then I sand the excess of the napkin off the edge of the tile. Some people cut it to size. Like I said, there's all different ways and techniques on how you do it. I prefer this way. I get a nice clean edge. As I was sanding off the excess napkin around the edges, I realized I forgot to mention there's a little bump on each side of the tile. I just sand them down. After I'm done, I just wipe them off. And then I do put an extra coat of Mod Podge on these coasters. So this way, you know, if you get anything on them, they clean up easily. After I'm done Mod Podging the rest of them, I just use the heat gun a little and then I set them aside. For our final set of coasters, I am going to use the tile again. First, I wipe it down with alcohol. Then I take it outside and I'm going to use a clear matte Rust-Oleum spray. I saved my favorite for last, which is the IOD transfer in an English toile. In the packet, you will find a transfer tool and a few sheets of transfers. On the sheet of transfers, you do have different little scenes of the toile print. I'm just picking what I want to use on the coasters and just cutting it out. One great thing about the IOD, they do have little grids, so it's easy for you to measure and cut. Before placing the transfer on the tile, remove the white backing. Be careful, it is sticky. Place it on your surface, take your transfer tool, and start rubbing. You will see the transfer get lighter. That means it's sticking to the surface. Once you rub the whole piece, You can start peeling the transfer paper away from the surface. If it didn't stick, simply place it back down and keep rubbing. Once you lift the transfer, take the plastic and lightly rub over it to make sure it adheres to the tile. Here I'm on my last tile. I just repeat the same steps. And once you're done, I take a clear matte Rust-Oleum, give it 2 coats. When you're working with tile, the back is really rough, so you need to put a scratch-resistant pad in the back. You could use those discs that you buy at the store. They have the little sticky, or I prefer using felt. Here I had one sheet of the pre-sticky felt, and then I had a regular sheet of felt. So on the pre-sticky one, it's really, you just cut it to the size of the tile, and then you just remove the white backing, take the felt, line it up, and you just stick it to the back of the tile. This to me is the easiest way, but again, if you don't have that on hand, you can use regular felt. So now I'm going to use a piece of felt that does not have the sticky backing. I take the tile and trace it, and then I cut them out. After I'm done cutting them out, I take my glue gun, I glue the back of the felt. I mean, it doesn't matter which way you do it. You could glue the tile if you like. Just make sure you get enough glue on it. That's why I prefer using, if you can, the felt that does have a sticky backing. So you just take the tile, you place it on the felt, make sure, work quickly because the glue does dry fast, and you're done. If you're planning on gifting the coasters or selling them, then you want to stick around for this part. For the wooden coasters, I'm going to use a wooden tag. I make these with leftover spindles that I have. I slice them down on my saw, and I drill a hole in it for the twine or string, whatever you're going to use. In keeping with the theme of the wooden coaster set, I decided to use the rooster stamp again. But prior to filming it, I made sure the portion of the stamp, which is the head I'm going to use, fit on the wooden tag. So here I'm just going to stamp up the head. No need to waste your ink on the whole body. Just press firmly onto the tag. After you're done with that, you don't need to seal the tag. The tag is more for presentation. And look how cute that looks. Now remember that piece of twine I told you to put aside? Well, we're going to use it to wrap the coasters back up. So you're just going to wrap them. I start from the top, bring it to the back, cross it, bring it back up. You tie a bow. I add a little bit of greenery. I always do to the coasters. I think it makes them pop a little. Add your tag and you're done. Now we're going to go to the other coaster set. I'm going to make a tag for this one. I had a plain tag that I make out of cardstock. So I took a piece of paper that I have, another piece of cardstock, and kind of the mint green matches a little bit that's in the coaster. And I just used some Elmer's glue stick, and I just spread it onto the tag, place it onto the paper, the cardstock, and then just cut it out. Make sure you get the tip so it resembles a tag, and then I take a hole puncher and punch a hole. Just to give this tag an extra touch, I have wax sealed stamps I like to use. This one I'm going to be using is a crown. So my favorite color is pink, so I'm melting the pink wax and I'm going to use the little stamp. Again, it has a crown on it. I thought it looked cute with the French country look on this coaster set. Moving on to the last tag, I purchased these in the store. It's a pretty blue color. You could leave them as is or add to them, which of course I'm going to add to it. I use a script stamp, and with the Stays On ink, I stamped on both sides of the tag. Just came out really cute. Now for my seal. Now I take another wax melt stamp, but this time I'm using the initials SS. And now to wrap up the coasters, I take the twine again. I start from the bottom, bring it up to the top. I am going to use a little greenery on top. So you just place the greenery in the center, you tie it, and make a little bow. Here I'm just adding the tags to all the coasters, and you're done. I like to make a variety of coaster sets. They have been a steady seller for me through the years at my craft shows. They are easy to make and inexpensive. It's also a great way to make keepsakes. If you have little ones, take out those finger paints, apply the same few steps, and what a precious gift you will have. Well, my friends, I hope you liked this video and give it a try. Until next time, ciao.